Hey, what's going on? I wanted to do a new video on the topic that I thought was really interesting that's been brought up quite recently, especially with Paul Joseph Watson when he talked about how conservatism is the new counterculture, or more specifically the left versus right divide, and the fact that the left has kind of taken over culture in media, Hollywood, academia, the government. Pretty much professionalism in general is dominated by a leftist political correct ideology. And I think it's pretty ridiculous to assume otherwise. But so I would agree with Paul Joseph Watson, not necessarily that conservatism, but you could kind of argue that big C conservatism, mainstream conservatism, it has kind of become the counterculture. For example, Ben Shapiro being at Berkeley required $600,000 worth of police protection. So I think that it's kind of obvious to say that people who wear MAGA hats are assaulted in public, and people who dress up with I hate Donald Trump shirts and dress up with, pro-terrorist, pro-communist stuff are pretty much safe in the mainstream sphere. You're not going to get any trouble, really, and people can say whatever they want, but you're less likely to be hired and keep a job as a Trump supporter than you would be for any other ideology. So maybe not big C conservatism, but normal conservatism and regular, in general, most of the right-wing ideologies are all considered at this point to be the fringe and to be the counterculture, and that's kind of undeniable. Even when I talked to my friend who was the one who brought this article up to me, or where we discussed this topic, he admitted that even though he's not Canadian, but he's from Iran, but he told me that he uses a fake white person name to get jobs, and he laughed about it and said, "Oh, and you don't get hired because you wouldn't get hired because you're a stupid, anti-feminist, right winger loser." Even though I'm not, I'm more of a libertarian leftist than anything else. But he basically said, "Oh, well, it's because you basically you are a white person." And I said to him, "So where's my white privilege? If I can't get hired at a job because I'm white, and with actually being white, I can't get hired, but he can get hired using a fake white person name." And he even admitted, "Well, the fact is, you're probably because of your political views that they wouldn't hire you." So I think that even though he has the ignorance and the temerity to laugh and guffaw about white privilege, he still doesn't realize the essence of the truth, which is that he has become the establishment. And these ideas, these pro-globalist, pro-immigration, socialism, high taxes, all this kind of government intervention, all this kind of stuff is the mainstream, is the establishment now. So anyone that says, "Oh, well, that's not true, that's not whatever," isn't paying attention to things that are going on in the media, things that are going on online with online censorship of right-wing ideas. And I think it's pretty obvious at this point. So I wanted to start off reading this article that he posted that started a really got me emotionally at this point. "You are not a rebel." That's what the article is titled, written by Lori Penny, one of my favorite SJW hysterical crazy people in the world. And it has a nice visualization of some people LARPing as Robin Hood characters, rather old-looking, weak people, as it seems too, that isn't even holding a bow. He just looks like he's straight up air guitaring an arrow right there, no quiver, no nothing. So you are not a rebel. Who benefits from the far right's pose of permanent insurrection? So this is where I wanted to talk. I wanted to read the first couple of things, and then I'll break it down in my opinion. Because when I started reading this, I just thought it was kind of stupid. Because if anyone actually knows who Lori Penny is, she's a privileged little college, university, private school type British girl who goes around talking about how oppressed she is all the time and how great feminism is, when she's really not helping her own movement, because she's just such a clown, literally. So anyways, starting off, I'll just read this, and then I'll get into how I can break it down for everyone to show how this guy, even though I respect him because he is a philosopher just like me, even though he's a communist or a syndicalist, one of these kind of leftist SJW types, clearly, because he posted this stuff unironically, and I laughed at him for unironically posting a Lori Penny article. But he basically thinks that this is actually a good point, and to argue against me, obviously, in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, but I think he was posting this to kind of combat me and to say, "Oh, you're not a rebel, you're the establishment, blah, 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 look at Trump, look at this and that and the third." That makes you basically that makes you basically like the establishment. I'm fighting the power, when in fact it's kind of obvious that leftism, communism, socialism is the establishment. Globalism, all this kind of stuff is the establishment. I mean, stop being a tool. Like, really? You really think that it's really revolutionary to say fuck Trump? Like, you really think that's revolutionary? You're insane, or you're an idiot, or both. Okay, so this is Lori Penny's article. In real life, nobody has the decency to realize that they are the bad guy until it's too late. The worst thing about the historical record is that it is usually written far after the fact. Just think, if we could only get our hands on advanced copies of tomorrow's historical bestsellers, we could work out once and for all how we fit into this cruel and anxious age where we're living through, and get a sneak peek at the ending to see who ends up dead, decked out with medals, or living incognito in South America. Sadly, that would hardly help those of us who are most dangerously confused. The people who most urgently need to consider which side of the moral ledger their story will be written on tend to read few books in which they are not the hero. So I think that's fascinating, but then we'll continue on because I want to get through the first little bit and then we'll talk about it. It's hard realizing that you're the bad guy because then you have to do something about it. That's why the most aggressive players on the gory stage of political melodrama act in such a bad faith, hanging on their own sense of persecution, mouthing the plagiarized playbook of oppression they don't comprehend because they don't care to. These people have a way of fumbling through their self-set of roles till the bloody final act. But if we can flip the script, maybe we might yet stop the show. This is just a hypocritical, lacking in self-knowledge, lacking in self-criticism or anything. And the fact that he would actually post this article saying, oh, so the left wing is so revolutionary and counterculture. Actually, that may have been the case in the 70s. But I'm sorry, we don't live in the 70s anymore. You're out of date and you're political grandstanding for the left and saying that we're still fighting the good fight. You're not fighting the good fight. You're dressing up in black, burning down people's establishments, destroying private property, and attacking citizens in the working class, frankly, because police are the working class, and people that are at these rallies are probably not the ultra-rich. So congratulations for being part of a violent anarchist mob of crazy communist revolutionaries. That's what you represent. And I think it's hilarious that she says, it's hard realizing that you're the bad guy because then you have to do something about it. You know what I found is really interesting about this is that when you read you watch a lot of Jordan Peterson content, you realize that one of his central concepts is this idea that you have to recognize your own capacity for evil and acknowledge your own capacity for evil, because it's important for us to realize that we're all humans and we're all capable of evil and we're all flawed individuals to some degree. And it's crazy for people to say, oh, well, we're going to project all the animosity and evil in the world onto my political opponents and say all the evil in the world is on them. And they just don't recognize that they're the bad guys. And only if they knew. You know, I think it's kind of insane for her not to include at least a tiny bit of, self-criticism, because I think it's kind of telling that these people, like my friend who's kind of an idiot, the other person kind of an idiot, these people who clearly they're very smart people in their own way, but they're an idiot in terms of politics. They're blinded by the fact that they have their own horse blinders of political correctness on. Do they not understand that every person right now that's out there is literally being bound and gagged by a leftist political correct set of rules and conduct for people, whether they're in business or they're in public life or even in their own family? I mean, they don't really understand how their views are, and it must be really difficult for them because of how the political climate has been, because of how tumultuous it is and how much conflict there is. But you know what? I think that they're just actually disturbed because there's a whole bunch of ideas that they have to deal with that they don't want to deal with. But the thing that I was saying about is that, and the main idea is that Jordan Peterson acknowledges his capacity for evil. But the problem with this girl, with Lori Penny, is that she does not acknowledge her capacity for evil. She's not even willing to acknowledge that her side has the capacity for evil, that Antifa has evil, that the left has evil, that they murder people. Just like the right wing. They're evil and they murder people because people on both sides of the spectrum are not perfect and all humans are flawed to some degree. And the fact that I found it really amazing that Jordan Peterson makes this a central aspect of his personal philosophy or principles, because he does acknowledge that there is evil in the world, but she does not acknowledge that there's evil on her side. In her mind, all the evil is on the right-wing side or the libertarian side, and it's just all of those people, or white people in general, all those people just need to realize that they are the true evil, and that, that all she wants to do is just save everyone like she's Superman or something. And it's kind of ridiculous, because everyone has the capacity for evil. I do, you do, everyone does. So, to say anything other than that, to say, oh, well, we're just going to project all the evil onto our enemies, no. I think is ignorance, and it's stupid. And it really shows an arrogance that these people think that they're still rebellious. They still think they're fighting the rebellious anti-war peace protests of the 70s. They're like nostalgia. They're like grasping for wisps of nostalgia that just slip through their fingers, because they can't actually get anything of substance, a hold of anything of substance anymore, because they themselves will have not come to grips with the fact that they are not the counterculture anymore. All these people that they talk about when they talk shit to me, and they say, oh, well, you don't, who are you listening to? Oh, the bunnies are sneezing. It's a lot of sneezes. It really shows that their lack of self-knowledge and their lack of self-criticism and self-discipline as well, because they don't have any principles. They're basically just going around saying, oh, we're the rebels no matter what. No, when the government and the political establishment and the media and academia and Hollywood are all on your side, mouthing the same meaningless platitudes about diversity is our strength and Hillary Clinton should have won, then you are the establishment. You are Hillary Clinton. You are with the people who run the New World Order. So I'm not really sure how these people can say, oh, we're fighting the good fight. No, you are the foot soldiers of evil. And you know what? Some of these people on the right wing are also the foot soldiers of evil. If you're dressing up like a Nazi LARPer and you're going out to Charlotte unironically waving Nazi flags, I really think that there is something wrong to some degree as well. Not only about optics. I hear them talking about optics all the time about Charlottesville. It's not just about optics. It's about the fact that these people, all they need to do is allow the left wing to implode on its own hypocrisy and allow them to cannibalize each other, auto-cannibalize each other, and themselves, and some, because their ideology is so toxic and they have no capacity for self-knowledge and actually forming something of value, just stealing for others and destroying things, it really doesn't seem like we are taking the right path. Yes, we're angry, whatever. A lot of us are angry. Libertarians are angry. People like me, philosophers, any free thinker should be angry at the current suppression of free speech in favor of left-wing ideology. But I think that it's crazy for people to say that, the left is somehow, rebellious and countercultural and all this kind of stuff. They're not. The far left is seeking to take over everything and to be in charge of all of our lives. So I really don't think that it's fair. And that's why they have something in common with Islam, because Islam also, in the radical forms of Islam, not the ones that are modernized, like the Majid Nawaz form of Islam, where he seeks to, become integrated with society, but also maintain the parts of his Islamic culture that mean something to him and that actually have substance and value in the future, into a technologically advanced future. I really think that it's possible that people really need to take a whole look at themselves and realize that, if you're espousing the same views as Hillary Clinton, as Paul Ryan of the Republican Party, who is basically just a left-wing person at this point. All of them are left-wing. They can call them right-wing, but most of the people they call Ben Shapiro, all these other ones, all these people are just arguing for common sense, and arguing for common sense nowadays is considered arguing for patriarchy, white supremacy, whatever, blah, 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 all these stupid things. So I just wanted to leave off everyone who actually made it through this amount of video to hear this discussion, because I want to know what other people think too. Is the left wing still the counterculture like it was in the 1970s, or is it the right wing the way I think it is now? And it's kind of obvious that not necessarily the common right wing, but almost every ideology that is not the left. So, if you're a centrist, if you're a libertarian, if you're anything basically other than a left-leaning individual, you're really not welcome in the public sphere, and your ideas and you as a person are treated with disdain. So I just wanted to leave off this and show an interaction between Lori Penny and, because this is the person who wrote this article. Ironically, she wrote it on September 11th. Okay, so she posts this article, this ignorant, lacking in self-knowledge article on September 11th. So on the day of the 9/11 Trade Center thing, when everyone else is thinking about the implications of world war and global politics, and how we can get Islam to integrate into the global community properly and peacefully, all she cares about, thinking about, is, oh, how can I denigrate right-wingers and make my opponents look like evil and project all the evil into the world on them? That's someone who has no self-knowledge. She does not understand her own capacity for evil because she's actively pursuing committing evil. And so are all these people dressed up like, left-wing radical anarchists walking the streets too. So I want to leave off with this, where Laurie Penny gets what's coming to her, basically, because she goes after Starkey, who is a British historian who happens to be gay, but he completely obliterates her for being a trumped up, obnoxious little schoolgirl who tries to use oppression as a way to win arguments, when in fact, just like the other people that I had this discussion with, I'm sorry, you're no longer the counterculture if you have the same opinions as every establishment person, as the political correctness. If the political correctness fuels your ideology, then you are not of the revolution. Even if you're an Antifa in the street throwing bricks through windows, if you're arguing for bigger government and bigger government spending and more taxes, you are part of the problem. You are not part of the solution. You are part of the tyranny.
People who organise conferences like this, it's sitting by politely whilst people play racial prejudice and xenophobia for laughs and pretending that this is an acceptable part of contemporary debate.
We're setting up a false dichotomy here between Britishists and Englishists. They're not at all.
Absolute dichotomy. The two are completely different. There is a historic English identity which goes way back before the concept of Britain. Also, this notion of England, or indeed Britain, as uniquely a nation of immigrants is preposterous. That every European country is a blend. Of course it is. There are two great differences.
I believe you have a house in America.
I have a house in America.
I was wondering, where are you domiciled for tax purposes?
See, why does she have to ask him? That's such an obnoxious, you basically, if you're a philosopher, or if you're anyone of knowledge or anything like that, or reading, then it's funny that she says, oh, these right-wingers don't read books, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you realize that you failed already in the test of argument because you attacked him as a person and asked him where he pays taxes. You didn't even attack his argument at all. You just said, oh, where do you pay taxes, by the way? Are you domiciled for tax purposes? I'm sorry, the person who sinks to insults, it becomes the loser. Who uses insults as a tool of argument becomes the loser. That's from Socrates. So you know what? She's lost. Not only is she an insolent little fool and an incompetent arguer, but she thinks, and the people that think that this person, this Laurie Penny, is actually worthy of having a real debate, really, you think that this person is an intellectual? Pathetic. Pathetic. Watch this.
I'm domiciled here, and I pay full taxes. And can I just say, as you have chosen to be personal and invidious, let me share a little story with you. One of the great things that is essential to Britishness is a sense of public duty, that you do things for nothing with organisations that can't pay. Ms. Penny, who has been advertising these great left-wing virtues, and I were due to debate for a very impoverished little society called the Thomas Paine Society on the virtues of a republic on the one hand and a monarchy on the other. I was prepared to do it for free. She insisted on trying to charge such a large fee that the event had to be cancelled. Now, I think that is as mean and grasping as some runt comedian, and I will not be lectured to by a jumped-up public school girl like you. I came from the bottom, and I will not have it.
Excuse me. May I?
And that's what you call the spirit of Britishness, completely annihilating this worthless, pathetic individual who tries to use insults, personal attacks, and frankly slanderous comments about persons' taxes, about a person's race or sexuality or gender, to say that his argument is invalid. the fact that she sinks to such a low level and the fact that she says those things says so much about the people that think that she is a worthwhile thinker or that she is a worthwhile debate person to be had. She has no argument. That's why she is sunk to this level. Anyways, have a good day.